you see here is a vintage Ruffler and Walker win and place. This was a very clever Allwin game because it had multiple payouts, and you can see from the ball catchers here you had the lost, you had some wins, and you also had a second place and a third place. If you get a win with a ball in the second place, you get 4 coins, and if you have a ball in both the second and the third place and you get a win, you get 6 coins. Now this particular machine needs some work. It's currently not working, doesn't accept coins very well, also doesn't pay out and gets jammed, so you can't turn the payout handle down here. We're going to strip this down. It's not going to be a full restoration. We've already removed the glass so we can see the quality of the background. You can see the play area here has a printout playfield, and it's got a plastic covering which is warped, which is quite common on these. Also, this could do with replacing. It's a bit tatty. It may be original, so we may try and keep that one. But if we come down to the one down here, which tells you the rules of the game, of how to play, it's a little bit faded, so we may have to recreate that one. So far we've removed the glass front just by sliding it upwards. We've also removed the badge here, which is the pennies only. We're also going to remove the coin slot so we can sand down the front later on. We've managed to remove the door from the cabinet. Most of the doors on the Allwin type machines can just be lifted off, so you don't have to unbolt these, they just lift off. On old machines you expect to come across some problems. Here we've encountered one 5 minutes into the project. It's removing the coin plate. You'll notice we've had to actually drill out the tops of the bottom screws as they were totally seized in there. Now we've got the door removed, we can now start to turn it around and have a look at the components on the rear of the door and take it apart. And while we do that, we'll also look for any problems that we can see which is causing it not to function correctly. Like most Allwins, the mechanism is normally just a mixture of springs and levers that move back and forth. This is no exception. So beginning with the mechanism, I'm going to take off this cover plate. We can now remove this plate. It's normally held in 4 locations. Again, someone in the past has played around with this. You can always tell because screws go missing. The thing I enjoy about the more complicated payout systems on an Allwin is that you have different channels and secret passageways which are hidden by a plate. Now we need to get this plate off to see what's happening with the balls as they go through, to see where they go when you get a second and third place win. Unfortunately, we have to remove all of this before we can get to that. Now we've got the payout area removed, we can get to this channel here where the ball rolls down, and we can start to remove this out. When you come to remove the metal panels, these are very flimsy and they're held in just by small nails which you can just prise out. Be careful, you don't want to bend this. It's often just a very thin sheet of aluminium or tin. You just want to pull out, then push back, and that'll just reveal the top of the nail head, which you can grab hold of with a pair of side cutters to pull it out gently. Okay, so we've managed to get the plate covering this lower part off. You can see how the clever mechanism works. Now this is where the ball release is when you play a game. If you're familiar with Allwins, you'll know that you get a penny or a coin drop down here and tilt this here. And if you see down here what it does, when that tilts, it pulls up this little, almost like a trapdoor plate upwards to release one ball. To stop all the balls from rolling down, there's another little trapdoor plate here that comes up and stops this second one from rolling. After much prizing of tiny mouths, we can now reveal the secret channels as we remove the panel. And here they are. One of the things we did have a problem with was the payout. The payout handle wouldn't turn. And it was down to this part here. This piece of wood had broken off, and the little metal rod that goes across here was getting jammed on here. So this has now been fixed. You can see where all the channels are cut out into the back panel. What we're going to do now is to remove the 4 screws in each corner and remove this from the frame of the front door. So we're going to try and remove the payout handle and also the flick arm. Now these are held on by a small pin that goes through the shaft, and you have to tap that out. Try and get something quite solid to tap it out with a hammer. You may need some lubricating fluid on that. So we're going to remove this one and the payout handle, which also has a pin through it. So we're taking off the payout cup. That's held in just by 2 screws, and we managed to get both handles off, the payout and the flick handle. And now we're just unscrewing here, and there's a bolt through here to remove the plate. Okay, one of the hardest things to actually get off are the tracks themselves. Now these are actually held in place by split pins or cotter pins, and they pull it through the wooden baseboard and come out the back here. Now these can be very awkward, and if they're very old they often snap, so you may end up having to replace the split pins. I've loosened these off, tapped them gently with a hammer. Some of the split pins have bent, and it's now a case of trying to pry these off of the front gently. Now when you're prising these out, you don't want to damage the surface in case you've got to reuse that. So just put a little piece of wood down, put the screwdriver under and prise it up that way. And so there's the final back plate with the tracks removed, the coin catchers, the handles, the covers and everything. I'll be honest, it wasn't an easy job, but they're now off, and we can now get to the backboard to see if we can repair this. So here we have the back panel without the graphics. That's been removed. What we found was under here were a couple of bits of perspex which had cracked and become very tarnished, so we've pulled those off and we've replaced with some nice new ones. Now the graphics on the back panel, as you can see here, were very faded and just looked very dull, and there was no gloss to it. The gloss was created via this, some plastic sheeting that was put in front of the playfield. As you can see, the quality is warped, split, dirty, and so what we decided to do is to pull this off. Now that it was faded and dirty, we managed to clean it up once we got the plastic covering off, and we managed to spray it with some clear lacquer to give it a silky gloss finish. And you can see here that the colours have been enriched, and you've got a very nice shine on it as well. Once you've tapped gently in all of the split pins through the backboard, you've then got to just, with a pair of side cutters, just very gently pull this taut out the back and then split the pin, and then gently tap it. So now that we've screwed all of the chrome fittings on the front, we just got to put the ball catcher cups just from the back through to the front. Now I think it was well worth us actually taking off the old plastic, which was this, and cleaning and spraying the lacquer over the back panel. This is only cardboard, by the way. They never used plastic. It was actually cardboard that this was printed on. But I think the job has come up really well. The chrome, the tracks have polished up well, and it's looking good. For the moment, we're moving on to the cabinet of the machine. What happens with most of the doors on an Allwin is that because all of the weight is on the hinge side, it tends to try and pull apart the joints of the door. So this door frame here, we're currently fixing by gluing up the joints. That makes it much stronger in future. We're also currently sanding down the cabinet because, as with most of these machines, to hide a lot of imperfections, owners often put a thick layer of varnish over the top of the wood. Now what we're doing is taking this off. It can be quite troublesome depending how thick it is, but with some wire wool, a wire brush, you can scrape most of it off and then go over it with a very fine grit sandpaper to smooth it off before you apply natural wax to it. So now that we've scraped off and sanded off the varnish, we're now going to coat it with some stained wax. Once the wax has been put on and dried for just a few minutes, we can then begin to buff this up with a dry cloth and just polish it, and you'll notice the natural wood grain coming out because of the wax on there. And yeah, you can see if we polish that, beautiful shine. We're now going to put the backboard face down onto the frame and screw that back in. Now that we've attached the flanges and the pay cup, we can now attach the handles. We've now pushed through the two handles. Here's the kicker, which we've now fixed, and make sure you get everything aligned up. We've attached a spring across here. Now I've put it on the lowest link. Now that means that the tension isn't that tight. Until I've got everything back together again and do a few test runs, then we can adjust this spring tension depending on how much kick is needed to spin the ball around the entire track. Now we've got the front of the door complete, we can now begin on the rear and put all the parts we took earlier off and put them back. Everything's been cleaned up. So the first thing we're going to attack is this main arm. This is the thing that has all of these wires on that control how the balls drop through the channels in here. So this is the first thing we're going to put back on. Before we put all the plates and coverings on the back panel, I thought it'd be interesting for those of you who, like me, like to know how these work. So let's see how all these channels work inside. First of all, this is where the balls arrive in play. This one over here is the loser hole, so when a ball drops through here you can see it drops straight down this channel all the way down to the bottom, back to its resting place waiting to be played again. If we have a look up here, this one is if someone gets a third place win. If they get a third place win, the ball will drop down here and it'll land on this little wire here that's blocking the pathway. Now what that does, it allows the player to see the third place win showing through the little circular window. Let me just demonstrate this for you if I can. Now when a second place win occurs, that enters a hole that's actually behind this bar, so you can't see it at the moment, and it will fall down this channel along here and onto here. Let's see if I can simulate that. There you go. So it's in the second place window. So there's the second place and the third place. Now when you get a winner, it will allow this arm here to be pulled to the right. Watch what happens. Here we go. Once you put all these back, the important thing here is to check these wires. You can bend them. What you're looking for is to keep this channel clear. Also that these ones come far enough across to trap the ball within the window. So you may have to just have a quick test run of these to make sure they work. The situation we're at this stage is we've got the back plate on. We've also got the controlling lever here. We've got the cover on, which is one of the first things we took off when we took this apart, but it's safe to put that back on now. We've just placed this one on, which is the winning lock device, and we just put this on here and make sure that this can tilt freely. The weight of a winning ball will land here and lift this end up to remove it from the lock. So the next part we're going to put on is the covers down here and also the payout slide mechanism, which is just here. One thing that it is worth just cleaning before you put it back on is the coin entry. It's this that tends to get very grubby, and some coins get stuck as they roll down and you end up bashing the front of the machine. So I just removed some screws here and we can slide that apart, and you can see it's pretty grimy in there, so just going to get some cleaner on there and just clean up so it's nice and smooth, so the pennies will roll down without any restriction. We've now put most of the mechanism back together again, from the payout slides through to all the channeling covers. I'm going to put a few coins in and I'm just going to test that it pays out. And that's just about everything done. We've now dropped the glass into the front after cleaning it, and it's now the moment of truth where we lift it up. And so now we hang the door onto the cabinet. And that's it, just about complete. There's obviously some polishing to do and cleaning. Hope you enjoyed this overview of how to clean and repair an Allwin. This is the Win and Place by Ruffler and Walker stroke Wondermatics.